So it's funny when you get to the point when you're working on, you know, refining something that you just can't let it go. You
Mhm.
know, and I always have to resist the temptation of just like working, you know, into the night because I learned somewhere around 30 years into my career that sometimes it's best to walk away.
Yes.
And then I come up with usually the best way to debug it. And,
Yeah, take your
you know,
mind
and you're
off
trying to
it and
wrap your
can
head
look fresh
around,
to it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to wrap your head around the whole thing. Um, that's hard to do with all the distractions. It's
Mhm.
much better to do when I'm meditating.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So were you able to try loading that up or
No, I didn't try yet. I've been very
yeah.
busy with trying
I
to fix the power problem of the
right.
version 1.1. I think this is a high priority because the user will directly notice that if it doesn't power up, what they're gonna do? Have to push other things on.
Right.
Yeah, I like the way you use it on the site. It's nice.
Yeah, that see, is that visible enough?
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
So what I wanted to show you was how the 3-button interface works. I'll go to something that you know, this is a typical. So I only did the basically 8 by 20 character display because that's uh, I don't have to change that software.
That's easier.
Uh,
Yeah, I
and
get
but I
it.
could configure it to be I think it's 20 lines by 20 characters
Mhm.
with this display and take advantage of that for displaying data. So but just for this development. So you could see in the very uh, corner there is a
Yeah, I see
selection
that
bar,
line. Yeah.
right? And then so as I scroll up and down, right? And on the right-hand side, you see a different bar, and that is because it's the number of
Ah, I see
items in the menu
another
exceeds the
option
screen,
more down.
and
Yeah.
then it just wraps around,
That's nice. I like that.
right? Then so you have up and down, and then when you get to an item you want um, to edit, or if you want to go into a lower screen, you press the middle button, the select button,
Okay.
and then when you get an item you want to edit, like let's say I want to edit the month. You see that plus minus?
Mhm.
That was the best character. So now I can, you know, now I can edit that value. And if I don't want to change it, I can always escape out of something. I can escape out of a page, going back to the page above it, or I can escape out of editing by double clicking or long clicking. But
Nice.
I just selected that. So that's how it works. And then when I want to back out, I hit the long press or double press. Now I'm going into device mode. Oops.
The end is in the middle.
Yeah. And the mode that interests me the most these days is the satellite mode. And now I can go into that. And then exiting out of it is again double press or long press.
Mhm.
So that's the menu system I came up. It works on my watch. It works on all the teensy and the code for the menu system is identical for all the environments. I was glad to see I didn't have to make changes to that.
Not at all. It just runs on an directly on an M5 stack.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's some configuration around it. because the character set is different, the size of the characters is different, the size of the display. But yeah, but the actual library doesn't change for any of the platforms.
So basically the files you posted will run like you're showing now?
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I can test that easy. I don't have to build anything yet. So yes,
Yeah.
I will do that. Let's put it on my list.
But I thought I'd show you how that, I mean, what I should be doing is, and I got this actually started as somebody else's project, and I found it on GitHub. And I go, great idea. And it's just like, it needs a little bit more. But I should put the explanation of how what the buttons do in the various modes, showing pictures.
And give feedback to the person where you got it from, or at least credit.
Right. Well, I did at one point mention that I created this other repository, which took his thing and specifically put it at that point for the OLED displays, and added some more features. Like, for example, the fact that you can not just have menu items in there, but you can overlay data, like that display was showing. That that's actually doesn't have menu items in it. It just has that's all that data display. I'm inside the basement, so I don't.
No, but I mean that if you make a copy of a repo, I normally say where it's coming from and who made it, so that person gets credit for that too.
Yes, I think that's a comment in the header file.
Okay, great. That's good.
Yeah, of course, yes, of course. I don't just take something.
Very nice, very impressive what you did.
And it also now you can use that as a GPS emulator too.
Yes, I can imagine it.
Core 2.
It runs on an Core 2 version 1 and 1.1, or you're running it only on the 1?
I only have a Core 2.
Yeah, a Core 2,
And
Core 2 version 1 or 1.1. That shouldn't matter so much, I think. That should be fine.
yeah, 1.0. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna try it out tomorrow. That's nice. Very nice.
Right. And the logging mode, I finally checked that logging mode works fine. So this is actually an example where it actually has one menu item at the bottom here for start logging. And
it logs to the SD card?
And it logs to the SD card, right?
Wow.
And then
nice.
and then you can I've gone back into taken the card, put it on my computer, and that's how I created that loop, that heart-shaped loop. Well, I was actually very specific, but I could have actually just edited it. You can edit out any route that you want. But the real wrestling match was getting the buttons to be consistent and getting and then one of the things I noticed was that you check in the beginning that the GPS module is working. And then what happens is if you're not getting any PVT packets, the only indication you get, let me switch back to camera. The only indication you get that is that it says the location is not valid, the time is not valid, and the date is not valid. But it's not telling you, hey, by the way, you're not getting any PVT packets, or you dropped the PVT packet. So and I built that library based upon the hey, Yella.
Hello. Please continue.
So I was explaining one of the things that I found was that we check that the GPS unit is working when we start up, but if but having getting packets with no location, with location not valid, date not valid, and time not valid, could mean one of two things. It could mean that you actually have a packet with you got a PVT packet with location not valid, time not valid, and date not valid, or it could mean that you didn't get a packet, because that's the response that happens when it times out, waiting for the next, waiting, I think it's 1.5 seconds. If it doesn't get a packet within 1.5 seconds, it says, okay, it zeroes those things out. So I wanted to, so what in my GPS Connect code, which is very similar to your GPS Connect code worker, I added a packet valid flag, and so I can know that it's because I don't have a packet rather than the other way around.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hi, Louis.
Sorry about that. Just young lad's bus keeps getting later and later. It's like I'm surprised he actually gets to school on time. Is my video not on? No, there it is.
No.
There he is.
There he is.
There you go.
Good.
The part that Michael is explaining about the GPS emulator, I recorded it anyway, so we can
Okay, good.
close later. You don't have to do it one more time.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So by porting it to the cube, to the Core 2, that you can use that if you have an extra Core 2. I don't, but if you have an extra Core 2, you can use that as a GPS emulator now.
Yeah, it's very nice. Michael just explained, showed running on a Core 2, the whole setup.
Does it also work on Core 1?
Probably.
Because I got
I don't have I don't have a Core 1.
I think it will work on it.
Obviously you'd have to put in an environment switch to go and change the buttons. The display is the same, but the buttons are different. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I can always use the Core 1 on the Zen and then the Core 2 as the simulating.
Sure.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, the Core 1 doesn't have RTC, so I think no, wouldn't work, I guess.
So here's a couple of other things I learned was I was trying to make the button press routine thread safe for using an interrupt timer, and was able to do that. And you can look into code for details, but and then I was also, as I was experimenting, I was like, well, if we start getting navsat data with a lot of satellites, the packet's going to starting to get bigger. And then also, if we're interested in pulling down other packets, I needed to change the baud rate for the GPS serial interface. So as I'm doing that, I'm noticing that I'm getting dropouts, and I go, okay, what's going on there? And then it turns out that it was an issue. I actually have in the interface code for the uBlocks interface code, you can actually pull out if you drop a count of lost packets, PVT packets or navsat packets. And I was like, so even at the 38400 baud rate, I was every so often losing packets. And then I go, okay, let me look at. So that's again where I use a timer interrupt service routine to pull data from the to pull data off the serial stream. And what I found was that that I was also calling that same routine in the foreground. And so it turned out that if it could be called in the foreground and then be called in the background at the same time. They could both be operating on that serial stream at the same time, and that was what was causing it. So I eliminated the foreground part of it. So every 10 milliseconds, it flushes out and parses the packet data, and that was it. Now I have no packet drops at all.
But isn't that because
Okay.
your serial buffer is too low then? Like, did you increase the serial buffer? Because I think
No, even if the serial buffer is not low, if you're in the foreground going and processing data off that serial stream, and then that interrupt timer also goes in there at the same time and does the same thing on the same data, and then you come back, and then the timing interrupt comes back. The other unit is going to be all messed up because you've changed the state. So it doesn't really matter that it's not a buffer being too full. It's actually pulling, two routines stepping on it. The interrupt timer routine stepping on the other routines. All I had to do was eliminate the foreground call, and then everything works fine. And the
no, but
same
I
thing.
mean, like in a single thread, like in the Zen, we have a single thread at the moment,
Yes.
and like without the background, why would there
Yeah,
be?
you won't see that. You won't see that.
Okay, okay,
As long as you're able to process as long as you don't overflow the buffer, yeah, you're fine. Right.
right, okay.
But the reason why I spent time trying to do that was for the possibility that we're going to be using higher baud rates. And I went up to that 11 whatever baud rate, and it works fine. So and the only reason to do that is if you're going to be pulling in different types of packets, more packets.
Right.
So
Okay.
so just to go back to the device, in satellite mode, every 10 I just had it set it up that every 10 seconds it gets the navsat data automatically. So it's an auto navsat of 10 seconds, and the auto PVT is every second.
That's nice.
Yeah. There's no reason to get the navsat data every second.
No,
You can't
indeed.
see it.
Agreed.
I think the uBlocks library didn't have that option to get it every 10 seconds.
Yeah, it does. So what happens is there's a
Does.
set auto PVT or
Yeah.
set auto navsat, and then but those call set auto PVT rate. If you call it set auto PVT, you're really calling set auto PVT rate 1,
Right,
meaning
okay.
it's so 1-for-1
But
measurement
it's an
and
integer,
PVT packet.
was it?
Yeah, and the same thing for navsat. So I actually, in my code, I stopped calling set auto PVT, and I said set auto PVT rate and set navsat rate. So I know specifically. I'm just bypassing an intermediate function.
But I looked at that, but wasn't the rate like per second? Like if you do 10, that it does 10 calls per second?
No, it's the other. It's
Oh,
it's the rate.
Interval.
How many measurements per report?
Oh, okay. So if it's computing a solution every second, but you only transmit once every 10 solutions or something like that.
Right.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
there's a measurement rate and navigation rate, and so it's keyed on the navigation rate. So whatever the navigation rate is, if it's 1-for-1, you're getting 1 PVT packet per navigation rate, and for 10, it's 10 navigation measurements and then 1 navsat packet. Unfortunately, I know way too much about that uBlocks stuff and about SparkFun's library.
Why?
Yes.
It's good. It's better to know too much than not enough.
I guess.
Although
Yeah.
sometimes it's
We should-
okay not to know, but
Yeah.
in this case,
Well,
not.
we should be thankful that there's that stuff is fairly well documented.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to some mystery chips that I've used in the past, and it's like, well, let's try this bit.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. What uBlocks has done. You think about, just that chain of the process that we're dealing with, which is satellite data coming in and all the way down to distilling it. There's a lot going on there. And these U-Blocks chips are just amazing at doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned you had something to show and some things you worked on.
Yeah, I can show something. Let's see.
I'm gonna cut out my video because my internet is unstable, I'm told.
Yeah, I had that too. My memory was also full, so I had some lag just now. Anyway, this is the Zen, and it's
Oh, you built it.
on.
Good.
Nice.
I built it like 2 months ago, maybe. Yeah, you can touch it and it turns on.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
then
I
you can
like that.
see,
Yep.
you can see the brightness go down.
Yeah.
After a few seconds,
Okay.
and then it turns off after a few more.
Oh,
I
great.
just had it
And one touch and
just
it
for
comes
demo
back again.
purpose. And one touch, it goes
Nice.
back again. And you can also, like if it's dimmed, you can also touch and it goes back. So
I like that.
Nice.
Cool.
Did you push the code
and
already?
also,
I like to see that.
no, not yet, not yet. I'll push it
Yeah.
after. So also this one has no touch, so you can just press any button and you see it
Oh,
turned
nice.
on, and it will not handle the button press. So if it's turned off, if the screen is turned off, you don't want a button press and then to stop logging or anything. So we'll
Right.
just turn the screen on.
Oh,
and
I see
then,
it. Yeah.
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 So
So
it
but
intercepts
this one for
the
some
button
reason,
press.
yeah, it just returns from the render function. Like
Right.
that's how
Right.
Right.
But the
Did you check-
dim
yeah.
on the Core 1 doesn't really work. Like the library says there's like a 0 to 255 value, and then it just like dims somewhere between
That's
there.
the
But
that's the backlight voltage value.
somehow like, the library is not very clear about that. I think the Core 2 has it implemented better.
Right.
I think Rob made like a function in the first version of the code. I just used that. We already had that since we started this. So
Okay, that's easy.
but for the Core 1, there's no dim, so I just put the value to 1, which is a little bit dim, but and then any value above like 8 is like full brightness. So I don't know. It's good enough. It works. Perhaps we can test it on other Core 1 devices, like the gray, and got another one here. Maybe it's just my one Core. I have to upload the code.
Talking about other versions, I'm gonna get an AWS version of the Core 2. So for testing the power setup, because the Core 2 on that one, they have an AXP 192. So that should basically work the same way as the Core 1 version 1.0. So gonna check that out. Maybe in a few days.
Core 2, you mean?
The Core
Doesn't
2
the Core
version
2
1
use the
and
AXP?
what?
The Core 2 version 1. You said Core 1 version 1.
Core 2 version 1. Come in. Sorry.
Right,
Yeah, you're
okay.
right. Yeah. And the AWS version is yellow, so that fits well. It's kind of funny to see that the yellow one.
Now this one has a better dim. So this is full brightness.
Mhm.
This is dimmed. This is dimmed. So that's better, I guess. And then it turns off, and then you can just press a button.
Press the button. Any button
Oh.
or only the middle button?
No, any button.
Okay.
But if you're in the menu, it doesn't render the menu again. Okay, that's something interesting.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my work for this week.
Okay.
Not much, but it's something.
Any luck with the locking, or you didn't look into it yet?
With the locking?
Login, so the
Login,
login
or-
menu and then sending it to the API and log.
Oh, man, posting files is not that easy. So I
Okay.
haven't really like finished something. Like I started on it and then I didn't really want to continue.
Okay, okay.
Like there were other things that are more important, but it is quite a bit more difficult than I anticipated. So,
Mhm. Because it would be very
but
useful
we can still
for
do
the
it.
user, because that saves them getting the SD card in and taking it out and uploading it. And it's so wonderful if it goes automatically. I mean, you push a button and it
Yeah.
sends it.
The thing is that we kind of need the multi-threaded version of the library, because uploading a file, so that would mean like reading the SD card and uploading it right away, because we can't load everything into memory.
But can you temporarily
That-
store it on the storage, the SPIS, I think it's called, or there isn't temporary.
Yeah, but then you would still
storage.
need to read it from there. So we could just
that's
read
true.
it from the SD card and then send, like read a line, send a line, but basically like streaming it to the API. But doing that in the main thread, like maybe it takes 10 seconds or something to upload if you have a big file or a weak Wi-Fi connection, and then your whole device is frozen because, well, it's uploading.
Uploading. Yeah.
Then we don't really want that. So I am still working on making the library like multi-threadable by adding functions that will run in separate threads and making it like thread safe. Offering like functions to make it thread safe.
You cannot upload it to another core. Let the other core do it, or
Yeah, well, that would be the same as making it like multi-threaded.
Okay.
So the current workers and handlers don't support like run it in a separate core because, well, there's no framework for it. I just want to make sure that like status of the handler. So if you say upload, then it will also say like it's handling the data instead of like currently we do it all everything in the main thread. Same as the worker, like it's producing data or something. Like if it's like in the second thread working on the data, then we can already show that
the progress.
there is work being done basically. So well, not on the screen, but like in the debug mode, or like it's basically a separate state.
Okay. Then it makes more sense. Yeah.
And also for the API connection, like uploading to the API, like just log lines in the fixed mode. So that would also be in the separate thread. And then everything, like the main thread would be fast enough to like handle everything within 10 milliseconds at least. So at most.
But that's good. Because at
That would
the
also fix
moment, if for me everything for the fixed mode works very nice. I mean, I'm very impressed. But it always worked, even if the Wi-Fi goes away and comes back. It directly locks and it directly starts to send data. And if it's not available directly, the red the red message comes on the screen. It's very nice done. I mean, very impressive work.
Yeah, the only issue is that if it's uploading, it could take more than like let's say maybe a half a second. During that time, a button press would not work. So that but you wouldn't really notice it because it's such a specific time frame or a time window. And you can always like sometimes you don't press hard enough anyway. So
That's true.
the user wouldn't really notice it. And I have no issues with the button presses. Like I just if you just press like normally instead of like trying to super speed navigate your way through the Zen,
No,
then
you don't
you
do
have no
that.
issues at all.
Speed
Like, oh, I
typing
want to go
on
to
my
No.
text
phone.
mode. Ding, 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 ding.
No, the only reason why I mentioned that is I wanted to
Hmm.
get double tap to work, and they have
Hmm.
built-in functions for detecting single tap, double tap, long tap, and
That's
they
true.
work. They work really
But
well. And I also wanted to get, I don't know, you know, for the projects that I work on, I don't know how long that main loop is going to take each time it goes through. And if it starts getting, really long, consistently really long, you're going to lose button presses. So that's why
yeah,
I said I'm going to take the time to figure out how to do this with timer, interrupt service routine that's driven by a 10 millisecond timer, and I got it to work.
yeah.
So you could
I
just
think
take
it's
a
very
look at that
nice.
code.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a look at that code. So the only thing you have to do is you have to have some volatile variables that you use between the two interfaces, and
Yeah, something
Am I
froze.
missing
you also
something?
have to sing the button presses.
Okay.
And
I'm
and all
sorry,
that
you
all you need to
froze
do
for a
that.
It
second.
froze for more than a second.
Oh, okay.
Few
So I
seconds.
said all that you need is is that the timer service routine doesn't execute in the middle of the foreground routine processing what it needs to for any button press. And all that
Right.
requires is a single volatile variable that says, hey, the foreground program is running, so you're gonna have to skip this turn. Again, you can just see that in the code.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's a good one.
it's just
I
what
will
it is
probably
it's a fail-safe method that you're all that for detecting button presses. Because of that, because you're using that interrupt service routine.
You want to say something,
uh,
Yellow?
yeah, I was gonna use a similar method for the what's it called? For the second threaded, or like the optional thread in the library. So with volatile data, it's basically copied. So the second thread uses the volatile property to store the data, and then once the main loop is checking like is there new data, if it's still like collecting, then it won't access it. But if it's done, if there is new data, then it will take it out and basically copy it to its own like data, which is provided to the rest of the system. Was the plan?
Okay, by the way, we are nearly running out of time.
Yeah, I see 5.5 minutes roughly.
Yeah, something like that, or even less. But do we have other things?
Yeah, the way
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying the way volatile works is that it means that variable its current state, it only has one current state, regardless of whether you're accessing it through an interrupt service routine or whether you're accessing it on another thread. They're both going to see the exact same value, and that's the key to having multiple threads or having interrupt routines dealing with communicate successfully communicating with the foreground routine.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing was the
Yeah,
display flicker that I was dealing with. I started using, I have a single sprite that covers the whole screen. And it also, what I noticed was the loop time through the main loop, I can display that. That took a significant load off of the main loop processing graphics. You just push all your, all your text and everything on into a sprite, and then the sprite happens. I don't know if it happens in the second thread. It's basically seamless. You can also go change the resolution and go to I'd add monochrome display, or you can go from 16-bit color to 8-bit color just to save time, and so there's absolutely no flicker now just from that one change.
I had used sprites actually in the summer. I was working on that to get rid of the flicker, as you said.
Right.
But the issue was, first of all, on the core, it would not run because the sprite is too big. Basically, the core basic does not have enough memory to create a whole
Right.
sprite, and the core 2 also, well, it has enough memory, so it would work on the core 2, but not on the core 1. But it would still use a lot of memory, which
Well, you can, like I
was,
said, you can go from 16-bit color to 8-bit color, and cuts the size of that in half. And then there's also the
that is
monochrome
true, yeah.
version, which actually they're still using 1 byte per pixel. But it's just the data transfer rates. It's just basically just black and white. It works really fast. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what we
that's
did in the on the Zen now is basically we just don't draw everything all the time.
right.
So we just draw like the value for the CPM changed. Okay, we draw
Yeah, I saw
the
that.
value and the CPM text.
So
So
you have areas that you work in, back the area
yeah,
out and refresh it. Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
You're
But
back.
just could I just jump in just before we run out of time? It looks like 2 minutes left. I've started doing drives with both the Nano and the
In the Zen?
and the Core 2. The Zen with the Core 2. There's my little setup here with the straps and everything.
Oh,
So,
very important.
yeah, well, that would be useful for comparison. But here's the question: is how do I maybe I can exchange with Rob after? How do I make sure that if I post it to the API, that it doesn't get integrated into the main database because it's still kind of experimental?
Or you can use the dev server for that.
Didn't you remove the dev server?
Not that I know of. But what you can do is, if you upload it, you can always delete it.
Oh, I see.
You
'Cause
can reject it. You can reject it
Yeah,
yourself,
I
and then
can
it will still
reject
be
it,
there.
or I can even, when it's there, I can even remove it, even if it's approved. It takes it out again.
Okay, so if I reject it, the drive is still there. It's just not displayed when somebody goes
Yeah.
to the map.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do that.
Oh,
But
and
we can still
by the
see.
way, the map is not updating at all at the moment. From September, it's not updated.
Oh wow.
No, but we have a big problem there. I cannot get a
okay.
hold of Nick. I cannot get a hold of Lionel. Lionel is supposed to make another one. He already set up a VPS for it, but no contacts. I really tried very hard for days,
Oh, okay.
weeks, and months, but no luck yet.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Anyway, it looks like we're out of
just
time.
upload it and send the link to us, then we can look at it.
Fair enough. We'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send both
Love
links,
to see
the
those.
Nano and the Zen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Especially the account for the CPM, I'm very much interested in, because
Yes.
the safe pulse, we tested it, but Peter couldn't make it yet to test it completely. I mean, I'm worried about that part. But
Okay. We'll
let's
do.
see. I'd like to see that. In low counts, it's fine, but high counts, it's a problem. I don't know what area.
Yeah, well, sorry, there's no high counts around here yet. Even though
That's good.
Yep.
They want to keep the Pickering nuclear station going on beyond 50 years now.
That's everybody.
You're in a
Okay,
dark
good.
room.
Oh, am I still in the dark room? Yeah, there
Yes,
we
you
go.
are. The very
I know
dark
you
Is
room.
that-
You're good.
That's better. Okay. So yeah, so just about that meeting, very, very preliminary. Basically, this group is trying to raise awareness of the implications of having a very old nuclear reactor or set of nuclear reactors. There's four reactors in that station that are going to be refurbished, and refurbished is a fancy word for ripping out everything except the the main tank of water and redoing everything. So that generates a lot of radioactive waste that they have to put somewhere. Low and mid-level waste. The storage of the spent fuel is not in a hardened facility, and it's a very heavily populated area. So, unlike Fukushima Daiichi or Chernobyl, which were out, I mean, unfortunately for those people, but the few people there took a big hit. I can't, and basically nobody wants to admit that the evacuation plans are absolutely unworkable, right? I mean, if you just look at a Friday afternoon when everybody's trying to get out of town, I can't imagine. I think what they did, I'm not sure if it was in Long Island, if they want to set up a new reactor, and the awareness people, just went around.
The Shoreham reactor. Yep, that's exactly right. The plan and the analysis showed there is no way to evacuate people, and it was so they completed this reactor for some reason.
Oh,
and
wow!
Then the shame was that they could have just not started it, but they allowed it to start, to do a preliminary start, even knowing that you couldn't evacuate people. And so now you have it's sitting there now with radioactive waste in it.
Right, great. So so what's happening is that it's a bit of a ping pong game between the federal government, which is the regulator, and the Ontario government, the state government, if you will, the province, which is the operator, and they're kind of playing ping pong with each other. And the regulator is really conflicted. They're sometimes they're cheerleader for the industry, sometimes they're the regulator, but the only time they really regulate is I don't know. Anyway, that's and that whole transparency thing is just not there. They've started handing out 10-year licenses so that they don't have to go through hearings anymore. So to reduce the number of hearings. So and people are generally very unaware of this. And you talk about like how Pickering, the Pickering nuclear station. Oh yeah, good jobs. Like that's the talking point. And the industry has done a very good job of preparing the terrain for so a small group of people, and what they're trying to do is push against a massive amount of industry messaging, to use a play word. So anyway, so at the moment there's really nothing. If that awareness meetings start start picking up, then we have a foothold saying, hey, you could have your own, explain the the consequences of what happened in Daiichi, that people didn't know where to evacuate to and from. The industry and the government were really stingy with information. And there's certainly this group, the awareness group is certainly going through the reports, the various reports coming out of the 3/11 disaster. So that's it for now. I'll just keep in touch with them, and we'll see. I did a little pitch, showed the Zen, so they know it's there. So
That's the same reasoning that that you're pointing to is the reason why Indian Point was shut down. Is that in a practical scenario, there's people have no idea when, if, how to react to an event that would happen there.
That at some point in the past, this was under the Liberal government, so this is pre-2016, actually was in a meeting with the Minister of Public Safety, the provincial Minister of Public Safety, And he's kind of going, yeah, okay, that's an interesting point. And nothing. Well, basically, again, you have a little bit of a toss-up. You have the energy, the energy ministry, and then the public safety. And then, I mean, it's a classic scenario that you see in IT all the time. It's like, yeah, we got to get the, you got to deploy the service and start making money. And the security people go, wait a second, what's going on here? And we're not, so basically, politically, energy is a hot button, so to speak,
Sure.
in Ontario, because that was like, it's a sacred cow. The Ontario Power Generation, which is the semi, it's basically it's a state-owned monopoly. The chairman can walk into the premier's office and say, hey, do a classic mafia shakedown. It's like, hey, you don't want the lights to go out on during your term of office, do you? It's like, here, sign a $10 billion check. Thank you.
Right.
And coming back to the comparison with the Zen and the Nano.
Yes.
If you upload those files, I can put them in Grafana in the same graph, so you can comparing.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I can set that up. That's not that hard to do.
Do you guys have just a few minutes?
Yes,
I wanted to just go through one thing. One of the things I kept pushing back on when Yellow was talking about ways of improving startup time and stuff was, can you see this?
Yes.
Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes, I see your mouse.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
Okay. So one of the things that I kept coming back to is a lot of those things like, well, I turned on this switch and now I'm seeing, better startup time. And that's all anecdotal. What I really like about this type of approach is that you literally can go down here. And so here's satellite 027 with a signal ratio with a to noise ratio of 46. And over here is that same satellite 027 with, I need to blow it up a little bit. It's really small on my screen, of 35. And so I'm saying you can do, so ultimately what it comes down to is your reception accuracy is basically what is the signal strength, how many satellites do you have, and what is their signal strength. And the way I sort this list is the first group is those that are used. So there's 12 used satellites, and then within that group, who has the strongest signal and who are strongest down to weakest. And then the next group is healthy but not used, and again, strongest signal to weakest signal.
So the strongest is 7. Device is 27.
Yeah, satellite. So it turns out that there's a GNS ID and then a satellite ID, and they both combine to make a unique connection.
I see.
Mm.
So they're both,
Because you could find, like, there's a satellite 617 or where's a good one? See if there's a duplicate here. So sometimes here's a 016. No, I don't see one here. So you could have a 027 and a 627.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that's really how you eliminate the anecdotal part and get down to real measurements. And obviously we could upload some of this data and do a comparison, over time. But so what I thought was, take this device, have two of these complete Zen boards, and take the device instead of right here, which I have it on a socket, try locations like this. There's also sometimes these power supply modules have a lot of noise in themselves. Depends on the rate that the processor is running at and the harmonics that it generates.
I didn't know that.
And then the board, you can't just say, well, it's the Core 2. It could be these other devices. I remember that there was one power supply or voltage regulator I was using that had a whole bunch of noise associated with it. So anyway, so that's that.
That's actually an interesting point, Michael. It turns out the college where I'm teaching right now has a room full of really nice spectrum analyzers. And
that's useful to have around.
Yeah, and it happens to be break week. So there shouldn't be anybody in the lab, or I mean, it's actually open access labs if there's nobody's teaching. So might save myself the trip and just go and do that next week after one of my classes.
If you can make the time, that would be wonderful. If you could check it
Yeah.
out, how much RF is
and,
coming from and which frequencies are coming out of the core 2.
Yeah, well, the core 2 and the little power supply.
Yeah.
Or the power, the DC to DC converter. So I mean,
Right.
if it turns out that it's really nasty, then we might have to consider a little can over top, or improving, or like improving the ground plane around that. And
Right. Yeah.
You froze for the moment, Louis. Still froze.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, putting a can over it makes things more complicated.
That's true. More things to build and other things, but
yeah,
we should check.
No, the problem is that we don't have control over the layout of the core 2 and of the little module, right? So if there's something like if it's polarized in one direction or something like that, then we can have that problem. Those signals coming off the GPS they are I don't think they're not sure if they're spread spectrum at all. There's a little bit of spread.
Yes, they are spread spectrum.
Yeah. So that helps, but the close proximity of a radio source would desense the AGC on the receiver, right? So just basically, if there's not AGC in the way, it would actually reduce the sensitivity. So that's that's consideration. But I mean, it works in phones. I don't, not too sure how, or maybe pardon me, I'm thinking out loud here. In phones, they actually have control over the layout because it's all one unit coming from a single manufacturer. That's the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of devices are designed, like for example, that one power supply I told you about that was using years ago, and they really didn't pay any attention to the RF noise that it was generating, and the harmonics were well within the band of, I think I was using Zigbee devices back then. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, and you could rotate the core 2. So it turns out that Rob found this. You couldn't have tried to put the antenna, the Wi-Fi antenna in the core 2 closer to the GPS if you were designing it that way.
Next to it.
It's
completely,
okay. Yeah.
But I found out today also very interesting. One part of the antenna is grounded. There was ground there. I was surprised. Like, I would not expect ground on an antenna. But I was measuring for the power, and then I touched by accident the antenna, and it conducted with the ground. So that's maybe a shield. It's not the antenna itself.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it's okay. Interesting. I thought so too. They have a hole in the top to let it go out and in. But basically, it's a shield.
Yeah. That's one field I'm never going to go into, is antenna design. I just use it. I just, tell me what I need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, in my career, I had 3 miserable weeks tuning a harmonic filter on a transmitter at 800 megahertz, and at which point my boss decided that RF was not my calling.
Yeah, it's an art form. It really is. All right.
Okay, good. So we good for this time, or?
Yes.
We good? Yeah.
Yep.
So next week we meet, and in the meantime we talk.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good.
exactly.
Looking
Yeah, I'll
forward
try. I'll try to make
the-
it on time, but Munchkin's bus gets later and later. Surprised he actually gets to school on time.
Oh, that's good. You can push a little bit.
Don't worry. Just I'll join when I join.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Have a great
Sounds
week.
good.
Yeah.
All right, you too.
Okay. Bye
Bye.
bye.